What is going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines, back as always with Alex Barth, off a fifth straight Patriots win, 32-13 over the Cleveland Browns there at Gillette Stadium on Sunday. And Barth, first half kind of felt like this rock fight we might have expected. A couple, Myles Garrett really took over, some sacks. We'll talk about that. But then third quarter comes, Patriots flip the switch, 3 touchdowns, and they just kind of roll over these Cleveland Browns. Felt like a kind of a similar game of what we've seen a lot this year. And then really just it was impressive that, it was kind of tough early and that they were able to kind of flip that switch and just put down a bad Cleveland Browns football team to get their 5th straight win there.
I mean, are we far enough into the season yet, or were we going to start talking about a typical 2025 New England Patriots kind of game? Because that's exactly what this was. Came out very flat. Letting that Browns team move the ball the way they did at the start of the game was very concerning in the moment. This isn't even, Spencer Rattler, who has a live arm and has a couple good wide receivers, and Cam Ward, who was the first overall pick.
Still in Gabriel.
It's one of the worst offensive, not the worst offense in the league. Then they kind of settled in the middle a little bit. It wasn't great, but they kind of played it to a stalemate. And then the third quarter comes, and this is one of the best third quarter teams, if not the best third quarter team in the NFL. They're outscoring opponents 60-13 in the third quarter since week 2. So, and then there was no looking back. They kind of let go of the rope in the fourth quarter. Mike Vrabel talked about the good, the bad, and the shit that gets you beat. They did a little bit too much of the shit that gets you beat in the fourth quarter, obviously against, they had this big lead, so it doesn't matter, but we can get to that. But man, this coaching staff deserves a ton of credit. And well, they need to come out and start better. And I'm going to keep saying it because it is going to bite them eventually. One of these slow starts will bite them eventually when they start playing better teams. Their ability to get it fixed and adjust in the game, that's not easy. I think it's really easy as a fan when things aren't going well, and we did this a lot last year. I'm not saying it was the wrong evaluation of what was happening, but the last few years talk about, well, where are the in-game adjustments? Why aren't they making in-game adjustments? The in-game adjustments aren't good enough. Like, it's really good to label that as a fan as an issue, and sometimes it is, certainly, but that's not an easy thing to do, to on the fly adjust, recognize, implement what needs to be fixed, and they're doing it week in and week out. So, a little bit of glass half full, glass half empty. It's great they're doing it, and they're doing it at a very high level. It'd be great if they didn't need to rely so heavily on those adjustments and they maybe hit the ground running like that. Like if their third quarters were the first quarters, you'd feel a lot better about where they're at. But overall, against that Browns team, to have the offensive performance they did, the defense ultimately settled down. That second touchdown, they were given a really short field late in a game that was a blowout. And
it was garbage time.
Yeah. Right. I don't put too much on them for that. So ultimately the offense got it going and the defense settled in again, the performance of this offense, 422 yards against that defense. First time they've given up 400 yards in a game this year. 100. I was saying all week, their run game, it needs to get going again. I don't even know if they need a rush for 170 yards. They did. Most of the Browns have given up this year. It was impressive.
Definitely. So, So that's what I think is maybe the most impressive thing is there was a lot of not great stuff, right? Like it felt like they may have played a better 60 minutes in some of those, like the Saints, the Titans, even going back to like the Panthers game was a good, outside of the first drive, which continues to be a problem, but 3 of 11 on third down, 2 of 6 in the red zone wasn't great, taking a lot of sacks, settling for a lot of field goals, 2 turnovers. Drake Maye had his first interception since week 3, and then the slow starts on defense, which I'm with you when we've talked about this a lot. Like this, at some point, it has to come back and bite them. Against a better offense, whether that's with the schedule they have, maybe that's in the playoffs if they get there, or Tampa's coming up. Atlanta doesn't look so hot all of a sudden offensively, so maybe that's Tampa is a good test in 2 weeks, although they're pretty banged up as well. But they tried this switch in practice even this week. They had Ben McAdoo, who is still on staff as a defensive assistant. They had him put together like this opposing script for 10-15 plays for the show team to try to jumpstart this defense, and you still didn't see it because Cleveland walked down and they scored. I think they had 3 explosives on that, and then before that garbage time, final drive, they hit like 2 or 3 explosives the whole rest of the game. So the slow starts are definitely a concern, and on offense, it wasn't perfect either. But I think that the fact that there's room to go and grow still, but you're still, beating
Yeah.
down these bad teams 32-13. I think that's pretty encouraging right now.
Yeah, the slow start for the offense in this game doesn't work, and they haven't started slow on offense nearly as consistent as they've started slow on defense. And it wasn't ultimately they just kind of sold out in the red zone, which isn't great, but it's not like they completely fell apart. And against a defense like this, I mean, there's going to be a filling out process. You need to see what they're going to give you, and I think this was Josh McDaniels' best game of the year. I
It
don't
was
think it's
great.
close. He really got a feel for, okay, this is where they've got us. This is where we can get them, implemented those adjustments. It's defensively against this offense. It felt like a really good chance to come out and make a statement early, and they didn't do it. But
Mhm.
overall, still, I mean, here's the thing. We're past, oh, well, they've won 4 games each of the last 2 years. Let's just mark the improvements. We're past that. At this point, this is a team. We're at the halfway point, Brian, which is nuts. I realized that driving home today.
Crazy.
Well, there's no more real. I guess we'll be at the halfway point, halftime on Sunday against the Falcons, but we're essentially at the halfway point. They're in first place in the division. I think they're in second place in the conference, right?
2 seed.
We're beyond, hey, look, they're not terrible anymore. We're so well beyond that. I think it's fair to look at this team and, hey, what is it going to take to beat, I don't know, who would they play if the playoffs were today? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top. Maybe the Bills? Are the Bills in the
I think the Bills
6?
are it is 2-6. Yeah, because they changed it. You're right.
Yeah.
No, it'd be the Chargers.
Chargers. Okay.
Pending what happens tonight, but because the Chiefs can get back in it. But like, we can look at this point. All right, you're playing the Chargers round 1 of the playoffs. What do you need to do? Like, what needs to be better in order for them to be competitive in that game? I think we're at the point now where we can talk about this team that way. And that's the big thing right now is the slow starts.
Yeah, and those offenses, like, you don't wanna get put in a double-digit hole right out of the gate, and then if you have maybe, we just said the offense hasn't been as slow out of the gate, but if they
Right.
sputter even just a little, you find yourselves in that hole, especially in a playoff game, if you're on the road even, that's a bad place to be in, but, I did like the fact that the first half
Oh, no, sorry. They'd play the Jags. It's 2-7,
Jaguars?
3-6.
Okay.
Yeah.
2-7, 3-6, okay,
But
Jags.
hypothetically, if the Chiefs win tonight, I think they'd play the Chiefs. So you imagine the
There you
Chiefs
go.
coming here for a play. We're so getting so far ahead of it.
Passing
But
of the torch, passing of the torch,
yeah,
baby.
really.
I did
Well,
like
no, it would be
also
beat them. And despite a great second half surge by the Patriots, and then the next 5 years would go to the Patriots after Mahomes goes to Tampa.
yeah. The Pats have to go to Arrowhead too and win. That would be a real passing of the torch, but
We're getting so far ahead.
okay. Back to the Browns. I did like how, the first half there was probably some frustrations, having to settle for 3 field goals, and it felt like if you were either of the last 2 years, that could have kind of spiraled out of control. And it does seem like McDaniels, who was great Sunday, Drake kind of credited them at halftime for kind of calming them down, saying, we're close, we're getting in this. Had a great script coming out of half that first drive of the third quarter. And then they just kind of take off with 3 touchdown drives. So, that's definitely mental tough, resilience that comes from the coaching staff, McDaniels, Vrabel, the culture they're setting. So I thought that was really, really positive that they kind of bounced back offensively and defensively after a little bit of a slow start there. But the big story, because of the slow start in the first half, was Myles Garrett, just dominant, 5 sacks. A lot of 2 against Will Campbell. 1 was against Jared Wilson on kind of a stunt, 1 on Moses, and 1 was kind of a schemed bootleg where he was just unblocked, which, might just have to tip your cap to Cleveland for having him over there at that certain play call. But Barth, is it crazy to look at the Myles Garrett 5 sacks and all the numbers, 7, 8 pressures I think he finished with, and walk away saying, after rewatching the game today, Will Campbell wasn't actually as bad as it seemed in live action?
I think that's fair. Look, it wasn't his best
It
game.
wasn't great. I don't want to say it was like perfect because it wasn't, but
look, I don't remember if we had a conversation on this show. I had it on a bunch of shows this week. Is Myles Garrett the greatest defensive end of the modern era? right? It's him,
Probably.
it's Reggie White, it's Bruce Smith, it's JJ Watt. That was my short list. A no doubt first ballot unanimous Hall of Famer. Made a rookie, like against a rookie, looked like a first ballot Hall of Famer against a rookie. I don't. Here's my thing. I think a lot of people are going to come out today. Bleh, short arms. Bleh, he's a guard. Bleh. Like Myles Garrett was just at times too big, too fast, too strong. Will Campbell could have had 36-inch arms. I still think he would have gotten beat some of the ways Myles Garrett beat him yesterday. Myles Garrett is too big, too fast, too strong for any tackle in the league. I don't think there's one tackle in the NFL you're going to say, yeah, put him on an island against Myles Garrett. He'll be fine. I do think some of it was handling the chips. I talked about this with David Andrews today on the Patriots Hub podcast. That it took Campbell a little bit into that game to kind of figure out how he wanted to use the chips and get settled on those. And once he did that, it was better. There were a few times where he got Garrett one-on-one. If the worst game of his rookie year is allowing, 3 pressures, 2 sacks. If the worst game of his rookie year is him allowing 3 pressures and 2 sacks to Myles Garrett, I'll live with that. Like that's, it wasn't great, but I don't look at that game as like disqualifying for Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not Joe Thomas. We knew that. We've been saying that since the draft. Yeah. Odds are he's not going to be the greatest tackle of all time. I'm sorry to break that to you. If that's news, no offense to Will Campbell, but probably not the greatest tackle of all time in the history of the sport. Can he be a starting caliber NFL tackle? Yeah, I think I can. And Myles Garrett has made starting caliber NFL tackles look like that plenty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree definitely with the chips because I feel like Hunter Henry did a really good job with the chips, but and Vrabel talked about this morning, kind of the runway between them. Like you have to close that ground
Right.
For Will Campbell, or Myles Garrett's just getting off Hunter Henry, and then he's just kind of delayed a half second, and then he's just back into his pass rush. Where I think if you go watch the Kayshon Boutte touchdown, the long one from Maye, it's not against Myles Garrett, but they chip. And I wonder if they took the shot because Myles Garrett wasn't on the field as well. But they chip, I think it was 57, and Will Campbell does a really good job to close the space. So that when the pass rusher comes off Hunter Henry, like Will Campbell is right there and engaged. So it got better as the game went on. And that's what I think, you want is just kind of this learning experience. Because again, he's not going to face anyone better, maybe for the rest of his career, than Myles Garrett. He's certainly going to see a ton of really good pass rushers, but Myles Garrett is one of one. Like he is an absolute freak. So it wasn't like a great performance. I don't think we expected a great performance, but I walked out of Gillette yesterday being like, man, that was really bad. And today, watching it back, like I think it was mostly just those chips. Like he was pretty good in the one-on-ones. Myles Garrett even complimented kind of his strength and power, which, we knew he had going back to school, and kind of stonewalling him and anchoring a couple times just in their true one-on-one pass sets. Like I felt like he was better pure one-on-one than when he had the chip help because of some of that space that he allowed them.
And there's been linemen that don't want the chip help because it upsets your timing. And now you're counting on, Trent Brown's one of them. You're counting on that guy being there. Now, if he screws up, it can be on you. And I'm not saying leave Will Campbell alone on an island for the rest of history, but well, now here's the thing. And this is going to be a thing with most rookies, right? He had a bad game. That was his first real bad game. Some of his games have been better than others. How does he respond? How does he come out this week against the Falcons? Does he move on from it? Or does it become something that snowballs? That's going to be the question here moving forward. I don't think it was a disqualifying game by any means. Now it's just about him not letting it get to him. You learn. Now it doesn't mean you ignore it. You learn from it. It's a learning experience, and you move on. Mm-hmm. We've all been in spots in work where you're suddenly very overwhelmed, and then you just kind of got to keep going.
Definitely. Is Atlanta rolling with Walker and James Pierce off the edge? They're 2 rookies.
I believe so, because I saw ESPN had Ebiketie on the trade block.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. You're right to say that. But I do think he's had a little bit of a lesser role. Unless there's somebody I'm forgetting.
I don't because they got Judon last year, but he's obviously in Miami. So I
Yeah.
would
I
imagine they
know
used
they
2 first-round picks on James Pierce and Jalen Walker. I would imagine they're playing those guys.
Yeah, I just pulled up their depth chart. Actually, I'm going to start watching them tomorrow. They don't have either of those guys at the top of the depth chart.
Interesting. Okay.
So their defensive ends are Zach Harrison and Rook Horoho.
Okay.
Their outside linebackers are listed as Leonard Floyd and okay, there's Jalen Walker. I missed Jalen Walker, and they have Pierce behind Floyd. So
all right. So I don't know. We'll dive into those guys obviously.
Yeah, that's
Thursday,
what we'll talk to you guys on Thursday.
Yeah, but see the bounce back from Will Campbell. But Ken put something here in the chat and super donation. So thank you, Ken. He said, can you guys comment on Myles Garrett throwing the hissy fit on the sideline after the game? I think he was slamming his helmet or something, they said on the broadcast, and having a little hissy fit on the sideline. Like, and he did sign up for this. Like anyone else would have given him this contract, and he chose to. And I will never blame a player for taking generational money, because I forget how much he got, but that is truly life-changing generational money. But he did sign up to return to Cleveland when he could have got a lot of money from a lot of other places, I would say.
Yeah, look, it goes both ways for me. I do think I like when a player, especially a player of that caliber, wants to stay with an organization and be a part of that organization. I do think that that's good for the sport in a sense, that a guy like Myles Garrett is not going to go be a hired gun. And now, but part of that, what makes that story great is when the team is good and that guy can say, obviously different scale, but we haven't talked a lot about this story, and maybe this is more of an end of the year thing. The fact that Hunter Henry put up with the last few years, decided to stay here and is still here and is now getting to be a part of this, super cool. And, you're happy for the guy. And I think fans, there's another level of appreciation for a player that does something like that. So I do like that Myles Garrett wanted to stay in Cleveland. I want to be a part of the solution mentality. Like, I think that's great. But at the same time, I think, we didn't cover it super intimately, but as I understand it, I think there was a discussion between him and the organization and ownership in the front office that some things are going to be handled differently, and they very clearly weren't. And I'm, on one hand, don't lie to the guy. That's pretty bad, but also they're the Cleveland Browns. I don't know that you take their words at face value, even with all that money on the table.
They probably don't deserve your trust, the Cleveland Browns.
Right. Okay, well, we promise we're not going to reach on a subpar quarterback so that our owner doesn't bully us into taking another guy that's not a starter later in the draft. And then we definitely won't take that guy. And then also have Joe Flacco. So there's an element of like, they're the Cleveland Browns. What'd you expect? You got your money. But I'll never fault the guy for wanting to be a part of the solution rather than being a hired gun. I'll never fault the guy for being competitive. Look, if the Browns, he's only 29. I feel like people think he's like 33, 34. He's 29. Yeah. So let's say the Browns bottom out, clean house, go in the draft. They hit on a Drake Maye type, have a Patriots or Commanders type run where they turn this thing around really quickly. He's 31 years old. They're rolling. That's going to be an awesome story if that happens. And I enjoy stories like that. But there's also an element of like, dude, they're the Browns. Did you really think they were going to turn the corner?
They were going to fix this.
So I don't hold it against them, but I see some people being like, well, I don't pity them. And there's a little bit of like, it is what you signed up for, but it is also just as a fan of the sport. I'd love to see that guy in a big game.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to see
100%.
that guy in a big game. Who wouldn't? He's played in 3 career playoff games. So I think we'd all like to see it. Just like we would have liked to see Calvin Johnson in a big game. Just like, when Shohei Ohtani was stuck on the Angels, we'd like to see him in a big game. That sort of thing. Kevin Garnett on the Timberwolves. And obviously some of these guys got out and went to places where they could compete, and it was awesome. I saw somebody say he's the Barry Sanders of defense. Sure. But he's there. He decided to be there. That's ultimately on him. He's allowed to both sign that contract and be frustrated that the team is not good. And if you want to be annoyed by that, fine. He's allowed to do both. What he can't say is, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
He can be upset that it's bad, but he can't say it's not what I signed up for, which as far as I know, he didn't say. He simply just said he wants the team to be better. Which is fair.
Definitely. So He was very complimentary of a couple Patriots
He
yesterday and Mike
was
Vrabel. So
drooling over Drake Maye. Did you see his
maybe,
comments on Drake Maye?
yeah, he was like, "I'm proud of him." I was
Yeah,
thinking to myself, like, do they have a past
right.
relationship or something? And I don't think they do, but he was very complimentary of Drake Maye. We
So
can
look,
transition that to Drake Maye, who was
I'll
very
just
good
say
yesterday.
this as we transition it. We're not doing this right now. File this one away for later. I don't think Myles Garrett's going to become available this offseason. The contract's too big for them to move him right away. I mean, maybe, but who knows? But if that's how Myles Garrett feels about Drake Maye, that's a pretty good sign heading into free agency that the Patriots might have some interest around the league. I think that is, maybe a little bit of foreshadowing of what this spring could be like.
Definitely. Yeah, between him and Vrabel, that feels like people around the league are starting to take notice. Myles Garrett actually only has guaranteed money in 26 and 27 on his contract. So maybe he could actually become available sooner rather than later. But different story for another time. But he was very complimentary of Drake Maye, again, saying he was proud of him for a young quarterback playing so well. And Drake was very good yesterday, even with that kind of slower start. I thought he had the interception, which was not good. That was kind of like rookie year Drake Maye throwing it right to the guy. I thought even maybe one of the sacks early. I don't know if you watched it back. The first one in the red zone, he could have been able to get the ball out to Hunter Henry or over the middle of the field a little quicker, but then just sticks with it. Third quarter, awesome. Another great deep shot to Kayshon Boutte. That connection has just been amazing to watch. And another just really overall great day for Drake Maye in the second half. So, are we at the point where this is just like expected? I know we talked about this a few weeks ago. Like this is just expected from Drake, and we almost don't need to talk about it as much. Or are you still just kind of like, damn, like he's playing unreal football right now?
I mean, it's unbelievable, and this is kind of becoming the standard. He threw the bad pick. That was a little bit rookie year Drake Maye, but we didn't see it weigh on him, right? He came back afterwards and was great. So I realistically, he wasn't going to go the rest of the season without throwing an interception. Like there was going to be one. There it is. You move on. It's in the past, Drake Maye throws an interception. Didn't matter what else happened in the game. That was the headline. And it was a total referendum on his entire career. And the sky was falling. And we're at the point now. All right, you threw a pick. That sucks. Move on. And yeah, it was a bad read by him. But then he came back. He was awesome. Got the deep ball going. I think the thing, I feel like for every game, there's one thing I try to highlight that maybe we haven't been highlighting as much. And for this game, he definitely has his preferences, or not even preferences, but I think some receivers are more of his favorites than others. But it's not a lot of young quarterbacks. You've heard me say this before, Brian. I've used this example a million times. Justin Herbert threw the ball to Keenan Allen like 140 times as a rookie because that's what he was comfortable with. And I don't think Drake Maye is wired that way. I think definitely Boutte, Diggs, Hunter Henry, there's a little more trust, a little more chemistry, but Mac Hollins pops off as the leading receiver, right? He's not afraid to go to those other guys if the script dictates going to those other guys. Mac Hollins this year hasn't been a ton of high volume, but where he has been really good is off play action. Like Mac Hollins is one of their go-to guys off play action, which makes sense because he's a plus blocker. He's in the game in a lot of run situations. So teams are going to focus more on him when he's on the field. All right, watch run, hit play action. Boom, he gets open behind the defense. We talked about how important play action was going to be against this Browns team. Naturally, Mac Hollins, it kind of lined up for him to have a big game, and Drake says, let's go get it. So that's not veteran quarterbacks. That's kind of the standard. Younger quarterbacks, that's not always the case. They have their guys, and they can get a little uncomfortable throwing outside of that group. Have not really seen that with Drake Maye here this year. And this game was another example. And look, when it was time to go to his guys, Kayshon Boutte, boom, deep touchdown. Got Steph Diggs his first touchdown. Got Hunter Henry the touchdown on National Tight Ends Day. So still time to mix those guys in, but it needed to be a Mac Hollins volume day, and they made it work.
Yeah. And after the interception, like he comes back, had the great seam shot down the middle to Austin Hooper, which that was another thing. Like he saw the safety rotation. I thought he was much better this week seeing the field, and even on some of the scrambles. We talked in Tennessee, maybe he was leaving throws on the field to scramble, and he even said that after the game as well. This week, I thought he was seeing the field a lot better, and the scramble decisions were more sound. He slid a couple times, even though they were making fun of him for his lawn slide. But, after the interception, he comes back, hits Austin Hooper, then a really nice pass, kind of over one defender in the flat to Mac Hollins, as we just talked about. So really spreading the ball around, going to all those receivers. And Barth, that receiver room as a whole just continues to impress me so much on and off the field. Their play on the field, obviously, they're getting open. They're great at the top of the route, getting separation, making big plays when the ball is thrown their way, staying ready, even though they are spreading the football around. And then just the mentality, like the unselfishness off the field has been so fun. And I think a lot of that has to do with Stephon Diggs. And you saw him finally get in the end zone and how happy everyone is for him and the celebration. So that room as a whole, just the complete 180 that has gone down there. And again, a lot of that probably has to do with Diggs, Mac Hollins. Credit to Todd Downing, who's done a great job coaching that group. But that group has just been so impressive to me. And again, just they all made plays yesterday. Like even Pop Douglas, his limited role, 44-yard catch, explosive, kind of shoves Grant Delpit off of him. Like they just make plays when the ball comes to them, and that group as a whole. It just I can't stop saying how impressive they are and how kind of surprised I am by it, because it has been truly impressive to start the year.
Yeah, it really has.
Yep. Anything else on the offense? Oh, they finally got Travion Henderson going a little bit, trying to focus to get him outside in space. A couple of nice runs on some tosses. He had 5 missed tackles, which coming into the year, he only had 5 total. So maybe the game slowing down a little bit for him. So I thought that was good that they got Travion Henderson going a little bit, and maybe that helps some more success in the second half of the year now here.
I mean, all it took was him going against the top ranked run defense in the league. So no, they did a better job of getting him to the outside. I've seen a lot of people highlight that, but he also ran well a couple times between the tackles. I've been hyping up this Matt Dolph theory for a few weeks. I think he was right. He just needed one. And I think it settled everything down for him. The crazy thing for me, though, so remember at the beginning of the year, people were saying Travion Henderson needs to play more, and it was like, no, he's playing a ton. It just doesn't feel like it because he's not really doing much.
Mm-hmm.
We've now hit the other extreme. I don't know if you probably know the number off the top of your head. How many snaps Travion Henderson played yesterday? So
14.
Travion Henderson, we'll start. Ramondre Stevenson touched the ball 15 times on 50 snaps. Played 50 snaps. Travion Henderson had 10 touches. Was it 14 or 15 snaps?
14 snaps.
On 14 snaps. So one, like he was really not on the field that much, even though it felt like he was. There is a tipping point there where even if he's good, it's like you don't want to get predictable. And maybe they're still worried about his pass pro. I did think he had one nice rep in pass pro, one of those 4 plays where he didn't get the ball. He's got to be able to be on the field when the ball's not coming to him. But just wild. I mean, the usage continues it's a complete and total roller coaster with him. So, and some of that is the Ramondre fumbling earlier in the year. 10 touches on 14 snaps.
It was crazy. Because
I thought again, we hit the other extreme.
I thought he was on the field more because I think
I thought it was going to be like 20, 25 snaps.
Yeah, he had like 2 of the first 5 snaps, and he had a couple nice, touches right off that. And you're like, okay, maybe we're getting more towards a 50-50 split. And then Ramondre just kind of dominated the rest of the first half. And then they mixed him in. I think it was pretty more even in the second half. And then, but again, every time he was on the field, he got a touch or he made one nice play in pass pro. So maybe the game is settling down a little bit for him.
Right.
Now, we did end the day with a fumble.
He had the fumble late, so we'll see how that impacts his usage. His coaching staff doesn't seem super bothered by fumbles, but that one was a little tough. I
think he lost the one to one of his lawn runs down the sideline. I think he lost that one too from a guy punching it out behind him, but he was on the sideline, so he was able to fall on it. So we'll see what they do. Ball security, that was a strength of his at Ohio State. I don't think he fumbled right in his whole Ohio State career, or did he fumble once?
So he didn't lose a fumble. I don't remember the number if he fumbled. I saw somebody say that was his first lost fumble since high school. He didn't. I think he fumbled. I don't know why I have this number in my head. I think it's 3 or 4 times, but that might be wrong. But he didn't lose any of them. Right. I know he didn't lose any fumbles in college. He might have dropped 1 or 2.
So it was definitely a strength of his in college. So hopefully that's just a small mark there, and they can continue to count on him moving forward. It also seems like they're going to sign Terrell Jennings, so they'll need a roster spot there. But maybe those are the 3 backs they'll continue to roll with. Last thing I just had on offense.
Real quick, he had I just had it. Where'd it go? He had one fumble in college.
One fumble.
And he didn't lose it. Yeah. It was as a freshman.
All right. So been a while. So hopefully we go a while without another fumble there. But last thing I just had on offense, Jared Wilson was impressive with his run blocking, and that was an area he kind of struggled with earlier. But that seems like 2 weeks now that he's been better, and 2 weeks that their run game as a whole has looked better. So, he was moving well. One of those long runs for Henderson, he was up on the second level, kind of paving away. So I thought he's kind of settling in now and looks much better in the run game. So good to see Jared Wilson, the rookie, playing a little bit better there. But any closing thoughts on the offense for you, or we can jump over to the defense very quickly?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, let's do that defensive talk before let's talk about our friends over at Prize Picks as well, because Barth, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right and simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. We have one Monday Night Football game tonight: the Commanders at the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota in for Washington with Jalen Daniels out. Tons of skill position players you can put into your lineups. I believe Terry McLaurin and Debo are back for the Commanders. Bill in the backfield. Then the Chiefs, a ton of former Patriots. Tyquan, Juju, Rashee Rice is back. Travis Kelce. So you can put plenty of options in your Prize Picks lineup there. And they also offer injury reboots. So if one of your player leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup over on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. All right, the defense. We talked about the slow starts. That was kind of, I would say that was the biggest defensive takeaway from this one, just as a whole team perspective. Would you say?
Sorry, say that again. You cut out.
I would just say the biggest kind of big picture point of view on the defense is these slow starts that we talked about in the front.
Yeah, against this offense, it's what you highlight.
Yeah, so they were, though, in a positive. They turned it on for the rest of the game until garbage time, and the run defense continues to be the best in football, maybe, and that was an area of focus. I know we were a little worried about entering the year, and they've just been, dominant. Quinshon Judkins, who would have thought Trayvon Henderson had a better game than Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State Packs. They kind of shut him down, and they forced Dylan Gabriel to kind of beat them through the air, and the cornerbacks played great. Gonzo, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones. So outside of the first drive, it was just a really good, complete defensive effort. You just got to see if they can kind of start that a drive or two earlier now moving forward.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever that feeling out process is, has to be sped up. That's what it comes down to. And the actual nuts and bolts of it, they got killed by tight ends again. Like, they got killed by Harold Fannin. A couple of explosive plays to him. One, I think the touchdown looked to me like a coverage breakdown. There's a little communication, really late communication between Craig Woodson and Robert Spillane right before the snap, and Fannin gets open on that side of the field. I'd have to know the call to know who missed, but somebody blew coverage. So it's that covering tight ends thing again. Like, that's they, for the most part, they had a very good game. The things where they did get beat, there were no surprises, right? Okay, they had a slow start. They struggled against tight ends. Like, we've seen that this year. That's what they've kind of been this year.
And even the first drive, like that 3rd and 12, that was Fannin, right? And that was with Marte Mapu on a man-to-man, who we've said maybe Mapu can be a tight end stopper. Like, he gets picked, some bad, slower awareness, and they give up that play. Now, they came back. The Browns actually came back to that same exact play later with David Njoku, and the Patriots played it better. They were in zone instead of man, and that was the Robert Spillane pick. So, again, it's just like the first drive to the rest of the game. It's a completely different game for the Patriots defense. It is pretty crazy, but they did well against Dylan Gabriel. They didn't play a lot of man. That felt like a game plan thing. Only 7 of 37 dropbacks, about 19%. I feel like they just wanted to confuse them, mixing up a lot of zone coverages. I thought the mix of the pass rush and the coverage was a lot better as well. Like, Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. Barmore had 8 pressures, didn't even play in the first quarter for disciplinary issues. Milton Williams had six pressures. Like, they did a really good job just condensing the pocket, mixing up the back end, and confusing Dylan Gabriel, who Dylan Gabriel doesn't look like a starting NFL quarterback, but I just thought it was better pass rush coverage mixed, even though they were playing a lot of zone.
You disappointed we didn't see Zappy?
I was a little
I
bit.
was texting my buddy who was in the stands, and he was like, "Should we get a Zappy chant started?" I was like, "It'd be kind of,
It, it would have
Zappy
been very
chant at
funny.
Gillette in 2025." Yeah, Dylan Gabriel's not the answer. I mean, they still haven't given Shador a shot yet. You got to see what you have in him. You drafted him, but I wouldn't look. This has to be it for Kevin Stefanski, right? He can't survive another year like this. I mean, I've been saying this for a year or two now, but I would have to think that
I do think he's a good coach, but it's just like, how many times can you just
it's also the Cleveland Browns. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Know,
does he want to keep doing this?
That's fair. The point being, they're going to be a quarterback team next year, and I guess we'll see how the draft plays out. Maybe they just end up in a bad spot where they can't get one, and they have to go veteran route or whatever. But they'll give Shador a shot, but I'm not in that setting. You know, I said this during the draft. I think Shador has some tools to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't think the Browns are going to maximize those. They're going to have to go out and get another quarterback somewhere else. And yeah, to Stefanski one, that's a good point, because for those who don't follow it, the college coaching cycle is going to be an all-timer. It is going to be complete and total chaos. You have multiple blue blood jobs that are up. LSU as of last night, Brian Kelly, see ya. Penn State. Which ones am I missing here? There's one other like true blue blood that's
Florida.
Open.
Did you say Florida?
Florida. Yeah, Florida is another one. There's some other schools that are not like true blue bloods that are good jobs. Texas might become open. There's some rumors that Sark wants to come to the NFL. And I would not be surprised if some of these colleges, like the college coach retread thing, you look at the guys who got fired on the Brian Kellys and the Billy Napiers, the top tier schools are not going to go for the retreads. And you might have some of those secondary schools. I gotta pull up the list. I know there's 12 right now. One of those secondary schools might look at it and say, well, we can get a Brian Kelly in his pedigree. We can get a James Franklin in his pedigree. Here it is: Arkansas, Colorado State, Florida, Kent State, LSU, Oklahoma State. That could be a good job. Oregon State, Penn State, Stanford, Virginia Tech, UAB, UCLA. A Virginia Tech may look at it and say, we can get Brian Kelly, right? We can do this. And I'm going to bring this back to the Patriots. Don't tune out. But, Florida, LSU, Penn State, Oklahoma State might go this far. Some like Stanford has deep pockets. They're not a blue blood, but they have deep pockets. They might try this. UCLA, it's either going to be up and coming first time coaches. So like Jerry Neuheisel's probably going to get a ton of interest. I would think he just stays at UCLA, even though he's not the head coach, despite what the media will tell you. But I think you're going to have some schools look outside the box. And, suddenly Bill Belichick has UNC competitive against good teams and with the lesser roster. And Stanford, Frank Reich has them pulling off a couple upsets. And do some of these colleges start calling the NFL coaches? And, we can pay more, have more freedom. There's something to be said for that. And, does a college give a guy like Kevin Stefanski a call? The other thing to bring it back, we've talked about this, and then we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but Josh McDaniels not going to be an NFL head coach again. Like, that's just not going to happen. Would a college call Josh McDaniels? I would not be surprised if that.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, does he take it? Does he ultimately get the job? Like, that's another story. But if you are employed as an NFL coordinator, head coach, or college coordinator, all those you expect a call. I think it's going to be that kind of nuts. So that's kind of a side tangent. But if you're Kevin Stefanski, take a year or two, go to the college level, go somewhere you can recruit, win some games, and then reset your value. It's probably better than sticking with the Browns, right?
Yeah. Although just the recruit, it depends how they feel about recruiting, because recruiting is such a shit show nowadays.
But you know what? A lot of these guys, what a lot of these coaches do is they hire the GM and they just get to coach and somebody else recruits. If you're Stefanski, maybe you feel like you have a GM that you trust that can run the recruiting. And yeah, you got to show up at the kid's house and make the final sales pitch, but you don't have to be 24/7 living in it. So I was thinking about that during the game or after the game when I saw Brian Kelly got fired. Like, are we going to start hearing them call? Are we going to start hearing about NFL coaches getting college offers? It's always been the other way around, and I still think we'll see some of that. Dan Lanning is. I've been pretty staunch on this. I don't think college coaches work in the NFL. I don't think NFL coaches work in college. It takes, I know I was kind of a believer in Belichick. I think Belichick's the greatest mind in the history of the sport. So that's like an exception to the rule. I do wonder now that there's a little bit more of a pro style to the college game in terms of roster building, if we start seeing more crossover between the two and not just college coaches going to the pros, but pro coaches going to college.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it. If you don't want to deal with all, and I know you could hire a GM, but you still probably have to deal with some of that. Like,
what's more of a pain in the ass, dealing with recruiting or dealing with the Cleveland Browns?
Well, like, could you go and be an offensive coordinator for some year and just drop sick plays and like not have to get all the pressure on as much pressure as being a head coach? And then next cycle, you get maybe your pick of the litter. Like, I might rather just do that than have to go deal with college for a year, because you would probably, although now you could leave after a year, you could get out of there if you really wanted to, but I might choose that route. But I wouldn't be surprised going back to the Patriots. Like, if Josh gets calls, but what Drake say Sunday? He was put on this earth to be an offensive coordinator. Like, I don't think he's ultimately gonna go anywhere. But it would be interesting if he takes the calls, takes the offers. But I'd be surprised if
well, the other byproduct to this, and this is more for head coaches and coordinators. This doesn't really apply to Josh, but like, you just to talk big picture, you saw Cignetti get that massive raise, right? And I'm sure Lane Kiffin is going to hold. You're going to see a lot of coaches get paid off of this by their own schools.
Yeah,
it's going to be a wild few months in the coaching carousel.
Oh yeah, Lane Kiffin's in it. Like, he doesn't even have to leave, and he's going to be the second highest paid coach, second or third highest paid coach.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. Because I mean, he's the one everybody's penciling him in for LSU or Florida. I think he's going to stay at Ole Miss, and I think they're going to give him a bag.
Yeah, his just stay there with a sweet new contract, and life will be good for Lane. But
anyway, total sidetrack there.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much done with the defense. Anything else? Robert Spillane was awesome. The interception, but he was all around the field again. I mentioned the corners, even though they didn't play, they played mostly zone, like vintage Christian Gonzalez game. Carlton Davis was really good. He got flagged again, which is 5 out of the last 6 games. I thought it was kind of a weak flag, but he had a nice pass breakup on third down. Marcus Jones was good as well. So Jalen Hawkins, unbelievable one-handed interception. So secondary was good. Just again, outside of the first drive, just a really good, strong overall defensive effort. But anything else that you saw on that side of the ball?
Jalen Hawkins played really well coming off that hamstring. Robert Spillane continues to play at a very high level. Probably hasn't been talked about enough since, he caught a lot of attention off the rough start, and rightfully so. He did not have a good start to the season, but he's been on a tear since that Steelers game. And then you love seeing Hawkins do that coming off the injury. Felt like he was maybe playing with a little bit extra, getting back on the field, and they need that because the safety position's still a little shaky to me. Craig Woodson has been up and down, and he's hurt. Duggar was hurt. He missed the game. So it's good. Jalen Hawkins had a good start, and then he got hurt. So it was good to see him bounce back. And what a freaking catch, man.
That was unbelievable.
What an insane catch.
I thought there was, like, once I saw him turn to try to track it, I'm like, there's no way he's going to catch. Like, nobody's going to catch this.
Full Willie Mays.
Yeah. I remember last thing I wanted to talk about defensive side of the football. The trade deadline is coming up. I promise people we will talk about it. I know people were complaining we didn't talk about it last week. Like, we were still 2 weeks away. We will talk about it. It's in a week from tomorrow, Tuesday. But Keon White was a healthy inactive for this game. Barth, what do you think his kind of future is here in New England?
Yeah, probably not for long, I would say. He doesn't have a role. They've been not that I think he's a guy that would cause a massive problem, but I think a guy like that wants to play not having a role, I think for the culture, we've seen them move on from guys like this since they got here. Can they find out a player for player swap? Like, they're in kind of a unique position where I think Keon White has value. I think Keon White's a good player. Unfortunately, he was drafted here at the wrong time. They just weren't in a spot to develop him when they got here, and he's since been replaced. And, if there's a team that has a role for him, can you get a coverage linebacker? Can you get a running back? Can you get, some sort of rotational player that will fill in? I'd be interested in a deal like that, certainly.
Yeah, and he felt like a better fit on the interior than the edge, and now you have Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. Even Tonga's playing so well, and you draft Joshua Farmer. I even like Corey Durden comes in for a couple plays a game, and his energy is just off the charts. So like it's tough for him to get in the inside, and then he's just not a fit on the edge. Even though like hand up, I thought he would be a really good fit in this Vrabel defense, and he looked like he was trending that way in the spring, and then it just kind of faded throughout training camp. So it does look like his time could be coming to an end. If they sign Terrell Jennings, which again, it sounds like they're going to, now that he's out of elevations, they're going to need a roster spot. So maybe something is coming soon with Keon White or somewhere else on the roster. But he definitely looks like a trade candidate coming up. Again, the deadline is the 4th, I believe, next Tuesday. So we will talk about it. We'll have 2 shows before then. So we'll go in a little bit more depth on that one. But to wrap up, any special teams takes? Can I compliment Andy Borregales without jinxing him? Can we do that?
I've been nervous about it, but he's been very good.
I want to give him his flowers because I don't think he's missed a kick since that week 2. He's been very good, but I don't want to jinx him. So I won't tweet out the stats or anything, but we'll say it here. He's been very good. Tough shank from Bryce Behringer there, and then a couple penalties on special teams as well. Even though the Schooler face mask too was ridiculous. Like the returner had his whole hand in Schooler's face mask, but just those are again things when playing better teams, playing higher level competitions, especially the shank late in the game. Like those are the stuff that can get you beat there. So you have to clean that up. But Andy Borregales has been very good at kicker. So hopefully that continues and we didn't just jinx him. But any last thoughts all in all?
No, I think we covered it.
All right. So we will wrap it up there. Be back later this week to talk Atlanta Falcons, who got destroyed by the Dolphins last week. So they are not in a good spot. We'll see if Michael Penix is going to play. He missed last week. Drake London was out too. So Falcons aren't looking too hot right now, and they have to come to Foxborough. So we will break that one down later this week. So make sure you guys are locked on to Patriots Press Pass, like and subscribe, turn on those notifications so you know when we are going to go live. Also, if you're watching us live right now, I believe Mike and Taylor are coming up at 6:00, so you can stay tuned for that one. I believe Andrew and Giardi are also on later tonight. So tons of Patriots content, Browns recaps coming for you. So make sure you guys are, again, locked on Patriots Press Pass, like and subscribe to the channel. And if you are just listening on audio, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. Please subscribe there. We would greatly appreciate that as well. And of course, you can follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for all his Patriots content on there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage online there as well. Thanks everyone for jumping on with us tonight, and we will see you guys later this week.